있습니다. 네, 안녕하세요. 저는 크립토서울 대표 강현정입니다. 네, 저는 그 미더블 많이 주관하고 있는데요. 그러니까 해외 프로젝트들이 한국에 왔을 때 이제 소개해주는 역할을 많이 하고 있고, 그래서 미더블들을 많이 주최를 하고 있습니다. 저 수많은 팀들을 많이 해봤는데 두 번째 한 팀들이 많지 않아요. 그러니까 작년에 사실 포카닷 팀을 처음 만났었고, 그 미더블도 참석했었고, 다시 이제 올해 또 하게 돼서 너무 영광이고요. 이번에는 포카닷 팀이 엄청 많이 출동을 했어요. 그래서 제가 컨퍼런스 사실 어제 끝났거든요. 비둘이라고 제가 컨퍼런스를 했는데 그것 때문에 이제 지금 팀 전체가 와서 발표도 하고 워크숍도 열고 그랬었거든요. 그래서 그거와 일관되는 이제 형태로 지금 미더블 하게 됐습니다. 그래서 아무튼 너무 와주셔서 감사드리고, 토요일인데 사실 토요일에 잘 안 하는데 미더블 제가 근데 이번에는 컨퍼런스 때문에 어쩔 수 없이 하게 되었습니다. 너무 감사드리고 제 첫 발표자를 소개해 드릴게요. 이제 전반적인 웹3에 대해서 소개를 해주실 거고, 이제 라이언 Zurrer 카운슬 멤버고요. 이제 최근에는 예전에 직장은 이제 폴리체인이라는 폴리체인 캐피털 그래서 일했었습니다. 아무튼 라이언에게 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Hi. So thanks, Erica, and for putting on such a great event this week and for this. And thanks to everybody else for coming. We appreciate having you out. I'm just going to talk quickly about the state of Web3 and a kind of high-level overview of the Polkadot project and some other interesting projects being built in Web3. So what is Web3? Web3 is Gavin Wood's vision for a decentralized serverless internet where users have better control of their own privacy, their own identity, their own financial accounts, and essentially their own destiny. Leveraging peer-to-peer decentralized networks and using trustless incentivization through crypto economic design, we can basically recapture the internet from the cartel that dominates it from today. So why do we call it Web3? So there is Web 1, the era of static HTML websites in the 90s, and then we kind of evolved beyond that into Web 2, which was social and mobile, and there was more user interaction and user creation online. It wasn't just sort of read only. However, that has created a very intense concentration of wealth and power on the internet, and monetization of this model has mostly been through an advertising or data mining business model. And then in Web3, we moved to decentralized applications built on WAS and virtual machines. Monetization is directly baked in at the protocol level. User control of privacy and data, and a much better distribution of wealth and power on the internet. And why does this matter? It matters because Web 2 has failed us. A small majority of companies own the vast majority of cloud compute and cloud storage on the internet. The FANGs own all of your data, and they commercialize it the way they see fit without including you in any way, shape, or form. I often say that we shouldn't get services like Twitter and Facebook for free. We should be paid to use services like Facebook and Twitter. And in fact, if you think about it, if everybody's paid appropriately for their data on these services, we could actually see the first attempt at universal basic income. And so, as I mentioned before, Web 2 got an interesting sort of dichotomy between Web 2 and Web 3 is Web 2 got user scale right very easily. A lot of these platforms scaled very, very quickly and captured users. However, had difficulty monetizing, and that's why they moved to this advertising model that was built in the 90s or data mining model. Web 3 has got monetization right through the advance of crypto assets, but is having difficulty scaling users. And so some interesting sort of cultural elements of our ecosystem. It's our belief that governance is a noble pursuit in and of itself. On-chain governance is an absolute necessity as we move forward in our space. I would argue that the largest problems within Bitcoin and Ethereum and the lack of, say, progress and evolution that we've seen in both of these protocols has been driven from poor governance guidelines, and I think that's something that needs to change. We need more experimentation around governance models, but also around consensus mechanisms and privacy and a whole range of things. And we need certain isolated spaces in which we can experiment without the fear of causing undue financial harm to people. And scalability, or the trilemma of scalability, privacy, and decentralization will mostly be tackled through novel approaches. And again, if we've got a culture of experimentation and pushing the ecosystem forward, I think for the most part these issues are relatively solvable. So enter Polkadot. Polkadot is the first project of the Web3 Foundation and a very critical infrastructure component of Web3. This is the connective tissue that will bring together blockchains and cryptocurrency landscapes that today sit in silos. It's completely ridiculous that we don't have communication, say, between the Ethereum network and the Tesla's network and the Bitcoin network. And Polkadot will be the conduit that will allow that. It's an incredibly ambitious project, and so where we see some interoperability projects focus on, say, the simple use case of cross-chain token transfer or value transfer, Polkadot allows for arbitrary smart contract calls across chain and arbitrary messaging across chain. This is incredibly powerful, a much more broad and technically ambitious goal. Hybrid consensus allows for fast finality along with very robust security. Governance baked in at the protocol level that will evolve the protocol as well as evolve in the nature of the governance mechanism. And it's led by in my opinion, I've spent the last 5 years basically evaluating protocols and teams across the world, and in my opinion, this is the best team in the space. It's certainly the deepest technical bench in the space, where most teams have 4 or 5 really strong blockchain engineers. The Parity team is, I think, on the order of 55 deep of some of the leading minds in this space are really pushing things forward. The Parity team was probably the first that I know of to very publicly recognize the movement of WASM VMs, and now the whole space is moving in this direction. And so it's an exciting project to be a part of for all these factors. And it's just sort of intellectually creates this curiosity and excitement of those of us who are in this ecosystem. And it's somewhat similar feeling to the feeling that I felt in 2014 and early 2015 with the start of the community around Ethereum. So quick overview of Polkadot. So you've got parachains, which would be, say, like Zcash or Ethereum or Bitcoin. These are mostly chains that will have some single use case or application or some specific advantage either at the consensus mechanism or something else. They will connect to the relay chain, the primary chain of Polkadot, either via a bridge or by being a parachain potentially built using the substrate fabric and then connecting directly into the relay chain. You've got in this parachain, we've got sort of collators, validators, fishermen, and I'll let the rest of the team get into who those entities are, but you can kind of basically understand what the connection is between a parachain and then the main Polkadot relay chain. A great advantage here is parallelization of security. So in, say, traditional blockchains like POW, if you can't really have security handle more than one chain, so you'd have to make divides and divide your resources as a result. With Polkadot, we avoid this. And so we can have massive scalability improvements through this parallelization of mining and security. One of the things that I'm most excited about this project, and a signal that as an investor in the space I take very, very seriously, is a very aggressive roadmap, but more importantly, that this will be, to my knowledge, the first major project in the history of our industry that will ship ahead of schedule. No project in the history of our space has ever shipped on time. That is in part because of the vanguard nature of the technology. It's also in part because of sort of the decentralized organizational structures and just lack of technical leadership and management that we've seen. However, we're expecting a Q3 release of Polkadot mainnet. And again, due to the technical leadership of this amazing team, they're on track to deliver that. And so I'm incredibly excited. I think this is going to be the primary launch and announcement of 2019 that really defines the year. So cool stuff being built in Polkadot. So I mentioned Substrate very quickly. So Substrate is a architecture for building parachains using the best-in-class technologies. You basically get your VM, which is the fastest WASM VM on the planet, plus a blockchain in a box, and then you can focus on, say, your consensus mechanism or whatever makes your project interesting and valuable and unique. And you don't have to recreate the wheel of the low level of the stack. So that's very interesting, and that's built by the Parity team. Another project that I'm involved in and very, very excited about is Edgeware. So Edgeware is a governance testnet with real financial incentives. One of the big problems that we've seen with testnets thus far is that nobody's participating on them because there's really nothing at stake. And so there's no reason for a widespread group of participants to be participating. But this will have a DAO that will control the rewards of the block reward, and you'll lock a certain amount of ETH and be able to get edge tokens, and then you can participate in governance and sort of control how this network evolves. I'm very excited to see what or to experiment different governance models, whether it's quadratic voting or multi-level voting or various other things. And again, built on Substrate, deployable as a parachain on Polkadot very quickly. So you've got that VM and blockchain in a box, and we can focus on what matters to us in Edgeware, which is governance and testing new governance mechanisms. Some other stuff that's out there that's really interesting. So there's Polkascan and Polkasource, libp2p, which is a collaboration, or actually a project by Protocol Labs that has partnered with Polkadot. Zcash, Energy Web, Agoric is actually an interesting one. So Agoric is Mark Miller's JavaScript smart contract scripting platform. So Agoric will allow you to write reasonably secure smart contracts in JavaScript. And that opens up smart contract scripting to the 24 million JavaScript developers around the world. So that's kind of cool. Blink is a DAG with very fast transaction throughput, highly scalable DAG, and an interesting approach to maybe eventually putting smart contract scripting in there. So there's a number of projects. Again, as I mentioned, there's this migration of people who want to get away from the kind of toxic narrative and never-ending debates of many ecosystems or many communities that we're in today, and sort of just get back to experimentation and building and focusing on evolution of the space. And those of us who are not tribalistic, those of us who are sort of blockchain minimalists, who are just focused on the technology, this is really the community for you. And this community is thriving. So, and growing every day, it's global, and this is an example of that. And if you want to reach out, get involved, participate, this is my contact and the contact of the organization, and more than welcome to, reach out to us and talk about ideas and just jam on concepts. And we'll be here today and tomorrow, and looking forward to connecting with all of you. Thanks.